The nervous system is the greatest predictor of your reality, and not because we need to regulate, but because it's unconsciously perceiving where there is threat and safety all around you, and it's responding to a coded pattern of what feels safe and what feels unsafe. So the nervous system does not have a lot of dynamic intelligence. It's not taking a situation and assessing it in the moment to see whether it's a truly safe or unsafe experience. It's basically just acting from a pre-programmed script of what has caused you pain in the past and what has not caused you pain. So when you have unprocessed pain in your body, your nervous system is going to determine by default where the threat is in your reality. The deeper level on this is that if we have been coded and programmed to be living in a environment that has a natural state of threat, that is naturally unstable, that could at any point not be a safe place to be, then our nervous systems are consistently on an unconscious level of hypervigilance. So when we're looking at where we actually live in the cosmos, in the universe, in this dimensional plane of existence, it's really important to understand how you've been programmed. And this is not a debate around the shape of the planet we live on. This is a debate around internal safety that comes from feeling the truth of how it feels to exist with using our senses, using our innate knowledge, and not deferring to a program that causes our nervous system to respond with unconscious fear. So what I mean by that is that we've been told a lot of stories about that we are an intestimable, minute, like almost discrete speck in a vast field of nothingness, of space. This in and of itself is already disturbing for the nervous system because it does not put us in a primary position. It puts us in a minority, in a vulnerability, in a secondary place to something vaster. And we're already going, I'm not really feeling the connectivity of a safety in that. And then we're told that we're spinning and we're moving, and everything that creates momentum inherently has some level of risk associated, right? Of where we're going to land in that momentum, or what we're going to run into, or how that momentum is going to continue to happen. And there's this sense of like that inertia by default creating this instability in our nervous system. When you think about what is stable versus what is unstable, where do you feel the most stability? In something that's solid and fixed, or something that's always moving at a very fast rate, hurtling through space? And the next part is we've been coded to believe that once there was a very big extinction event, that these enormous creatures, the dinosaurs, were roaming the earth, and then a massive asteroid came and annihilated huge creatures. And so there's an unconscious threat living in that program that at any point in time, we can have something come from out of space and collide with our world and destroy us, effectively just blow us up. That creates a level of instability in the nervous system. And then we go another layer, which is we get told on the daily that our atmosphere is unsafe for us, that we are impacting something so vast and so powerful by our daily actions. And even though we don't see a direct shift necessarily in our environment, we are told to believe that things are worsening on the daily, that we are destroying something. We're made to believe that we are inherently damaging. So if you're living in a nervous system that's told you're inherently damaging, disturbing, destroying the home you're living in, how do you think your nervous system feels about that? How out of control, how unsafe do you think you feel about that? So there is coding, and I'm not going to talk about why the coding is there at this point, but there is coding that makes your nervous system inherently unsafe. And the very core of us connecting to our vaster creation consciousness is knowing that we are safe enough in our physical reality, in our internal reality, in our wider place in the spectrum of creation, that we can have a deep level of internal safety. Because when we feel safe on all those levels, we are no longer in fear. Because the one thing that fear creates is our vulnerability, our capacity to experience the external threat of coercion, domination, and control. If you fear something happening and someone says to you, if you do this, you will be okay, then who are you going to answer to? Where are you going to look for that safety to come when you feel inherently physically unsafe? That is the patterning. That is the programming I'm most concerned about. Where the internal unsafety leads you to feel inherently that something outside of you can make things better for you. And through that, there is an implicit coercion, domination, and control of your being to provide this illusion of safety. So for me, physical reorientation into deep levels of inner safety is so critical. And then from there, an accessing of true safety, which is beyond the confines of the nervous system. It's speaking to consciousness. And that consciousness is the vastest level of intelligence that is the source, the God, the divine, the ineffable, the part of you that you cannot explain, but you know as true, as valid, as infinitely powerful. That part of you is the part we need to unlock, the part we need to remember, the creatorship of the reality around us that comes from you being centered in the full expansion of your own consciousness. And to meet your consciousness, we then have to make another part safe. And that is the places within the internal construct where you are trapped in trauma, where you are trapped in confusion, where you are trapped in deep visceral fractures, woundings, I call them, whereby you've adopted a program of being split and separate from yourself, from the source, and that's taken on a quality of not being enough, not being loved, not being known, not being wanted, and that has reverberated through your whole life. And that split of you as a divine being, of you as the consciousness that creates, and that siphons all your energy into trying to manipulate the outside world for you to have some form of control, an illusion of safety. And when we see these fractures for what they are, for the havoc they cause, and we realize that we are splitting from the source of us to have this experience, and how we can return back to create from a different level of consciousness, we are then on the path to sovereignty and freedom here. So the work is in your consciousness and in the physical stability on the very core levels. When we create radical inner safety and we have ourselves plugged into that source, there is nothing really outside of you that can ever threaten you, that can ever coerce you, dominate, or control you, because you've liberated to the highest level, which is your soul. And a lot of the distraction or pulling you away from that level of knowing is that soulless space, that empty material space that goes, this is what it is. This is enough out here. Keep your eyes focused on your survival, because that's the only way you're going to create safety. It is all a radical illusion. Your safety only comes from you meeting the truly fractured parts of yourself that believe that there is something to fear. And beneath that fear is your core pain, and your pain is your ultimate liberator. It is the thing that will bring you into a truth. Because when you recalibrate that pain to not be something that hurts you, but something that you can realize has a visceral, energetic, and access point to consciousness, you can meet that part of yourself. You no longer have to fear that. And when you're no longer fearing your own pain, you're no longer needing to project the wounding and acting out the loops. You're free. So when we go into the depths of this work, we need to keep our eyes open. We need to answer to our souls. We need to answer to no one beyond that. We need to know the pathway to get there. We need to work directly with our consciousness and apply the mirror of reality. Reality will always show you where you are not yet free, where you are still constricted by that construct. And we need to free ourselves. And I can say, when I freed myself from the distortion of the physical reality, it was like I landed safely in this dimension. I was like, oh my God, everything that has not made sense to me was nonsensical. Everything that I felt was creating fear through me was to be feared because it was untrue. And when I landed in the truth of my body, the truth of my senses, the truth of my own safety, my whole life shifted. I was like, oh my God, we are the center of this. We are the creators here. We are the ones with the ultimate power. No wonder that wants to be distorted. No wonder there is a mission of distortion that is available out there that we can reclaim from, that we can completely rise from. So open your eyes. Open your eyes to what is real, the senses. Do not have blind faith in anything. Find your own truth and question everything till it feels true in your nervous system, in your soul, in your core of your being. Do not settle. And be aware of how powerful we are in being unconscious in that manipulation, as well as powerful in our creation. You need to become aware of where you've given up that intrinsic sense of yourself, because that's a powerful energy you give away. You give away your attention to build these models. You give away your attention and energy to build these programs that aren't aligned to you. You give away your attention to build a reality around you that is not aligned to your soul, because you are a powerful creator. And unless we see the distortion beneath that, then we are not really going to be ever free within ourselves. We're always going to be leaking our precious divine energy into a program that is not going to serve. And when you are the one creating your own interface with reality, and yes, we're never really free of programs because we need them to create a level of relationship here to the density of the three-dimensional world. But you can determine your own program. You're the one that can write the script. You're the lead actor in the determination of how reality gets designed. And you get to do that. But you can only do that once you realize where you have given away your sovereign ability to do so. Where you have conformed, blindly accepted, taken on something that is not in alignment to your soul. So take this time to reflect, to review, to investigate, to use the senses to anchor you safely in the vessel that you have. We are the center point. We are the creation point. And we're here to live that now. And that I'm not going to settle for anything less. In full love.